Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Keynote Session 2. My name is Jong-Hyuk Kim, the General Co-Chair of this year's conference. It's my great pleasure to chair this session and to introduce our keynote speaker today, Dr. Ha Hong. Dr. Hong, Dr. Hong is currently the Chief AI Officer at Medtronic Endoscopy, where he leads AI research, development, and strategy with a strong emphasis on building responsible AI solutions for patient care. He is a recognized leader in medical imaging innovation. He previously helped to build Caption Health, later acquired by GE Healthcare, where he led the development of the first AI navigation system for cardiac ultrasound. Dr. Hong received his PhD in medical engineering and medical physics from the Harvard MIT Health Sciences Technology Program and his BS in physics from KAIST. Today, he'll present his keynote talk entitled How to Build Responsible AI Solutions for Patient Care. He will share his strategies, best practices, and recent innovations in AI that can shape safer and more effective patient care. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ha Hong to the stage. Dr. Hong, stage is yours.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for your warm introduction. So I am, truly excited and honored to be here, and I also like to congratulate the organizer for, organizing this amazing event, bringing all the world's brightest minds on this topic in this amazing and beautiful city of Daejeon. In the audience, are there anyone coming from Daejeon? I know some of you are from Daejeon. Woo! Daejeon rocks. As you probably know by now, I went to a college, university that's not far from here about 20 years ago, and it always feels good to be coming to the origin where you grew up in this amazing occasion. Anyhow, going back to the track, so if you look at the badge, and you will get to know that it says from concept to clinical. And my presentation today is specifically about that important aspect. So as you may recognize, right now this is a pivotal time for AI in healthcare. The rapid development and advancement in AI have created unprecedented opportunities in patient care by AI. But with great potential comes great responsibilities. It is simply not enough to develop your innovations. Of course, it's always fun to tinker and create the innovations, and it's easier. It's even becoming easier to making innovations in these days with the better tooling and also all those better off-the-shelf models that are available right now for free. But if you want to bring your innovations and transform that into a real product and also a real business, you must do something beyond just making the innovations itself. It is not enough because as you can see, patient care, medical device field, the patient lives are on the line. The stakes are so high. You need to ensure that the innovations and the product that you created is safe, effective, and also are designed to address real clinical challenges in the world. So in this session, I am thrilled to share insights and some of the lessons learned throughout my career after developing and delivering more than 7 FDA-approved medical device products, including the ones at Medtronic, the largest medical device in the world by revenue, And within 45 minutes or so, you will learn key principles on this important topic, and will be able to jumpstart building your own responsible AI solutions for patient care. Before we begin, let me share my personal journey on how I got here. It all started about 15 years ago with my PhD research at MIT. I studied the brain and tried to create end-to-end computer vision model that emulates the visual perception processing in the brain, starting from the input image, predicting real visual neural responses to it, and performing all different kinds of visual performance tasks, such as classification tasks, segmentation, detection, and even pose estimations. Well, by now we all know that there are several high-performing off-the-shelf models that address those questions. Basically, right now it's known as a solved problem. But when I started this 15 years ago, it was not a solved problem. As a matter of fact, it was a holy grail. And to pursue this holy grail, what I did was that I collected one of the largest neural data sets from high-level visual neurons, and then similarly large human behavioral data sets for the same images. I needed a powerful tool. Okay, I had the data, but I needed a powerful tool to essentially emulate visual perception processing in the brain. And that's how I started to tinker with the AI, specifically deep learning technology. With the large data set that I collected, I eventually was able to create a brain-inspired deep neural net that goes from the input images, predicts real neural responses, and then performs all different kinds of visual tasks with high performance. I was very much fortunate to be a part of this amazing discovery and journey, contributing to the neuroscience as well as to the deep learning technology itself, especially during the early modern deep learning technology around the AlexNet era. And then there was a serendipity. When I was about to graduate my PhD, a good friend of mine, Charles Cadieux, the lead author on this second paper, came to me and started to talk about crazy, but very, very important and interesting idea. The story goes like this. There are simply too many people dying from heart diseases. There is an amazing diagnostic tool called cardiac ultrasound. But the problem with the cardiac ultrasound is that it is so difficult to use it. I mean, you need to go to sonography, ultrasound schools. You need to spend months and even years to become proficient. And then even after you graduate from the school, you're not guaranteed to perform well. The thing is that, ultrasound is that at a given time, you get to see on the ultrasound screen a 2D, projection of your 3D volume. And in your brain, you gotta do reverse tomography, which is totally unintuitive. Your brain is not programmed. Throughout the evolution, your brain is not evolved to do that kind of visual performance task. So the bottom line is that it's difficult to perform. And because of that, we have lack of support from trained sonography who can support acquisition of high quality ultrasound images. And hence, that kind of acts as a bottleneck for proper follow-up and early detection of the cardiac problems. So with this recognition, we as a team, including Charles and other co-founders, including Killian Kopsel. Is Killian here? Woo! Hi, Killian. He's the founding CTO of the company that I'm going to mention today. So we came together and asked this following question. With AI, will it be possible to make an ultrasound navigation system for everyone so that even if you're not familiar with ultrasound scanning itself, you just follow the navigation, turn-by-turn navigation system signal from the system, and then just simply follow the instructions, and then you arrive at the destination just as you drive in a foreign city using Google Map, and you don't get lost. So my answer to this question was yes. I witnessed the full potential of AI deep learning during my PhD. Its ability to recognize patterns and emulate human intelligence. I thought that it should be possible to make an AI engine, especially deep learning engine, that understands nuances of ultrasound images and provide navigations like Google Maps does, as I mentioned, so that even if you're not familiar with ultrasound scanning, you just get minimal training, just follow the turn-by-turn navigations from the system, and then you arrive at the destination. I also thought that working on this topic would be a perfect application of my expertise, benefiting science, medicine, and public health. That's how I took the journey and got into this intersection of AI and medical device, and it has been extremely rewarding. We formed a company named Caption Health, and Killian Kopsel, he's the founding CTO sitting over there. And if you have any questions, and if you're looking for a job in ultrasound, especially cardiac and lung, with the application of AI, please find him. He's sitting right in front of you. And then we formed a company named Caption Health, and we were rowing together about 8 years, making the first FDA-cleared AI cardiac ultrasound navigation system, getting reimbursement code, and generating revenue. The company was very successful, and it was eventually got acquired by GE Healthcare. But the journey was far from being straightforward. We had an early success in making the technology and making the prototype system. But at least I myself, we began as engineers and researchers like many of you. And we knew nothing, at least I knew nothing about what to do next to release a real, commercial product in this, healthcare field. And long story short, after making and delivering more than 7 commercial medical devices and navigating a variety of successes and failures, I learned valuable lessons, and I am about to share the lessons with you all. There's a saying that all happy families are alike, and every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Based on my observation, I want to say the same for AI projects. All successful AI projects are alike. So what are the key ingredients that make an AI project successful? Let's switch gear and deep dive on the process to build responsible AI solutions for patient care. As you will see, it's not a vague concept at all. In fact, you must, yes, I insist, you must follow this process in order to transform your technology, your innovation, into a successful product and business. And this is the overall process. As you can see, it's not too complicated. The first step is the initial planning phase. In this stage, you set the groundwork for the rest of the project. Here, it's vital to identify the clinical problem, the clinical issue to be addressed, and the expected clinical benefit of the AI. What do I mean by that? So for example, clinical problem to address. What do I mean by that? Just to give an example, the realization that there are too many people dying from cardiac disease, and then the bottleneck is the difficulty in cardiac ultrasound scanning. Is that a realization? And from that realization, you can, for example, derive and set a target. For example, I want to build a turn-by-turn navigation system that can enable any novice operators to acquire high-quality, diagnostic quality ultrasound imagery. That can be a goal. And then that's not enough. I mean, you need to be more specific. So for example, you will want to set the target, the performance goal. Just to give you an example, we can set the performance goal something like as, okay, when a novice user uses the system, I want to show and demonstrate that in more than 80% of the time, the novice user will be able to acquire diagnostic quality images. That 80% can be a performance target. I'm just giving you an illustrative example to be really concrete. And where do we derive those 80% number? Well, I mean, you can do a lot of different ways. You can try a lot of different ways. Maybe you can try literature review, or maybe you can survey physicians, clinicians, or in this particular case, actual users, the sonography, the echo technicians. And you can just derive what would be the minimum percentage of a number that you're gonna be satisfied. And in our particular case, it was actually 80%. So that's how we derived that number, okay? So the first step, like, clinical benefit of AI, it is really about, defining your goal and making sure that it is actually a clinical problem that worthwhile to, endeavor. The thing is that this entire process, like, the 4 circles that I put up there, it can take many years, oftentimes 5 years or even longer. And at the end of the day, like, you realize that your product and innovations doesn't get used because it does not address actual clinical problem. That's real sad story. So you do not want that happen. So you need to really, really, really make sure that what you are gonna solve is actually the thing that matters, okay? So the next comes the data strategy, understanding the distribution of disease types and major variables and confounders like image device, patient gender, BMI, race, and age is vital to minimize the bias in later steps. So for example, like trying to understand the input to your AI system, okay, the distribution of inputs as a function of those confounding variables is super important for later steps. Assemble a core team with key stakeholders. This ensures your solution addresses the clinical problem and aligns with business needs with a viable regulatory strategy, etc. And then really try to make a prototype, even if it's far from being polished. If you can somehow get some decent amount of initial training data set, you really ought to make a proof of concept AI model and AI, I would say mock-up system or even a mock-up product. And show that to the clinicians, show that to the users, and get some initial feedback. And again, really, 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 really make sure that you are working towards the right direction, and they are excited about your product, excited about your concept, and then really make sure that you are, your target, your clinical problem definition is worthwhile solving it. In this way, again, you can quickly kill ideas that are not going to fly and will save yourself from wasted effort. Try to measure the performance of the system as a function of the amount of the data. What do I mean by that? So, for example, like try to measure the performance of your system. It could, for example, be engineering performance, or even be more like clinically leaning performance. So, for example, you can imagine like plotting a 2D chart where y-axis is the percentage of the time the novice user would acquire diagnostic quality image as a function of the amount of the training data set. At the very beginning, if you do not put a lot of training data, your AI algorithm will perform poorly, so it's going to be lower. But as you add more and more data point, your performance, your system's performance will keep increase. The idea is that you can do some extrapolation analysis, and remember that you defined the performance target at the very beginning, and try to estimate. You don't have to meet that yet, but try to estimate the amount of the data that you will need to achieve that target. And in that way, we will basically be able to get the feasibility analysis. I mean, how long will it take to get that amount of data to achieve the performance target? Will it take like 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years? Knowing, getting the answer to this question is super crucial and also good for your mental sanity. And as always, safety and effectiveness are paramount in medical device creation, and that should be the North Star throughout these entire activities. Once you've established a clinically meaningful objective, proceed to the main R&D phase with proper engineering. I emphasize proper engineering. Now, in some sense, like, as a researchers, you would probably spend most of your time for prototyping this step. Okay? So you would probably spend most of your time for prototyping in your lab. I mean, up until so far as a PhD student, maybe postdoc, maybe as a research scientist or professors, I kind of suspect that perhaps most of the activities that you've been doing and you're familiar with is the prototyping. But to mature your prototype and initial innovation to a actual product for patient care, you need to perform proper engineering. You don't want to have like bad, horrible spaghetti code that are not maintainable. That's big no-no, and FDA will not gonna want to see that. So going back to the track, so let's say you established a clinically meaningful objective, and now you want to proceed to the main R&D phase with proper engineering. So good AI, as we all know, requires both good data and good code, with a significant emphasis on the data. Based on my previous experience, I tend to spend, I don't know, maybe at least 90% or even more time for proper data engineering. And based on your initial disease distribution characterization you've done in the previous steps, collect diverse data to reduce the bias. Ensure you have sufficient data for final validation and cross-validation, meaning that don't get too excited and do not use up all your data. You will need some decent amount of data for final validation for regulatory purposes later. You do not want to run into a situation where you used up all the data for training and model development, and later you realize that you do not have any data for regulatory purposes validation. If you run into that scenario, which I did in the past, it is really ugly. Your project will get delayed by unknown amount of time until you get the data for validation. So have a good plan. And also, you really want to have some good cross-validation, minimally patient-level cross-validation, meaning that between the research and development data set versus the final validation data set for regulatory purposes, you do not have you do not have common patients between the two sets. And on top of that, the FDA, they recently released a guideline that recommends site-level cross-validation as well. So if you're really serious about this topic, keep in mind that the trend is coming that you want to have no overlapping clinical centers, clinical sites between your development versus the actual clinical validation. It's good to know. As you can see, you do want to have a good, proper data management system to keep track of this information. Proper AI engineering is essentially proper software engineering. Use version control system thoroughly as essentially a form of documentation and keeping the track of your history of the R&D. Regularly conduct unit, regression, and integration tests. You gotta test all the time in an automated way to identify issues as early as possible. Continue to improve human factors design aspects and try to make AI predictions more explainable, crystal clear to the user. Test your design with users and ensure they use the system in the intended way you designed. And if you find that your users do not understand your problem, do not understand the AI outputs, and do not use your device in the intended way that you designed, I dare to say that, like, I know there can be some dissenting opinions, but I dare to say that it is your problem. You gotta find a good way. You gotta make your system more explainable, more easy to understand, easy to use. So yeah, keep that in mind, please. And continue to refine your performance target throughout the alignment among the key stakeholders. So for example, I gave you 80% number target as an example, but just make sure that it is a good target or not. Do you need to increase? Do you need to decrease? Or it's okay to keep that in that way? You need to ask the question all the time. And perhaps most importantly, if you can, or I should say, you must perform AI pilot experiment in a realistic as possible way, at least once. What do I mean by that? Like, let's say you put a lot of effort and now you have a prototype system or even a release candidate. You have some device with some maturity. You actually try to run your system with the clinicians, with the end users, and measure their performance, okay? Measure the performance, and that's basically becoming the effect size, anticipated effect size of your system. And based on the effect size and also the confidence interval of the effect size, you will be able to determine the size of the clinical trial for your FDA clearance. This entire process is called power analysis. It's a really important concept in stats. You don't have to become a statistician, but you need to have a pretty good understanding about what power analysis and all those statistical processes actually mean. Alrighty, and now let's say you feel comfortable about the performance of your system, okay? What you need to do is that you need to freeze all the elements to prevent further changes and enter verification and validation phase. The way the validation works is that you basically pre-specify test plans, meaning like writing documents, the plans that describe how you will test your device or your system. Once you write the plan, you execute the plan as written, get the result, and report the outcome. The report talks about whether your algorithm passed the test or not, and this is determined based on the statistical testing as defined in the plan. And as you can see, you need to adhere strictly to the plan. You are not allowed to make any changes to the plan nor to the device itself, and that means you need to maintain really high integrity and maturity throughout this validation process. And this is perhaps one of the most difficult kind of things that you might need to change mentally, at least as a researcher. And I myself tripped up on this point in my previous life, where, I was a researcher, and I was so excited about making new innovations or even prototypes, so that I was continuing to developing a new next version of the AI model the night before the beginning of the validation phase. In retrospect, it was a big no-no, and when more mature people told me that's a huge big no-no to do, I didn't understand, and I was actually quite sad that I couldn't do that. But the bottom line is that it's really important to accept this mentality that if you want to just stay in innovation and academia level research, it might be okay not to worry about those topics. But if you do want to run a real business, helping patients out there in actual clinical environment, you need to get through this entire process, and it is really important to keep that in mind. One of the key validation activities is that you need to run the pivotal study, also known as clinical trials. The pivotal study typically compares clinicians' performance with AI against clinicians' performance alone, demonstrating AI's safety and effectiveness as an entire system. In this case, you're measuring the performance of the user. In other words, you're not measuring AI-only performance. Of course, you will need to measure that as well. But for clinical trials, in most of the cases, what you want to do is that you want to measure the clinicians, the user's performance, and increase of the user's performance due to the AI. You're not just interested in measuring only the AI, only standalone performance. Of course, you still need to do that, still need to measure that, but on top of that, I mean, that's not enough. On top of that, you will need to measure the clinician's performance. So even if you pass the clinical trial and pivotal study, that's not the entire picture. Clinical trust in AI is super important. So you need to generate clinical evidence by publishing papers demonstrating clinical benefits, as well as transparently describing how your system actually works for basically all the stakeholders, not just the clinicians, but also for patients and also for the regulators like FDA. And in the same way, communicate transparently with the regulatory agencies, and they will be happy to give you valuable feedback. Even with meticulous planning, AI systems may not pass validations from time to time. Well, whenever this happens, it really sucks. But this is not the worst thing that happened. I mean, the worst thing that can happen to you is that you somehow release your defective product, AI product, to the market, and your actual users and patients would becoming the testers. That's the worst thing that can happen. So if this actually happens, this is not the worst. But it actually still, it hurts, and since it hurts, and because this happens from time to time, you do want to allocate some buffer. Trust me, it actually happens quite often. And upon receiving regulatory clearance, now you are ready for product launch. And this is a milestone to be proud of, but also a new beginning. Customers will want to understand your technology, and well-trained sales representatives can really build customer trust. And you will also want to have an operations strategy to receive a real-life performance feedback, to roll out updates, and to manage different system configurations and versions that deployed. Market release is just a beginning. Plan for next versions involving key stakeholders. Take user feedback and establish engineering and product roadmaps. And the same for regulatory. So for example, like depending on the scope of the engineering changes you anticipate, you might want to incorporate and use a concept, for example, in FDA, that called predetermined change control plan. We can that can reduce and streamline the effort that are needed for the device validation. And this is the last point. Remember the virtue of perseverance. Developing responsible AI solutions for patient care is a long-term commitment. So plan for a marathon, not a 100-meter sprint. And although I presented the process in this linear, like waterfall-y way, in real life, that's hardly the case. In some cases, oftentimes it's an iterative process. In many cases, it's actually think in the backwards, okay? So for example, like, to release a successful product, your product needs to address clinical challenges. And to put your device into the hands of the physicians, you must get a regulatory clearance with clinical evidences, meaning like lots and lots of clinical papers. And to get those kind of things, you need to do certain things during the development and initial planning phases. So it helps to think in backwards. And all in all, through this entire process, you need to focus on the clinical benefits, gain user trust, and ensure that your AI works in concert with the established clinical workflow. I know it's my observation that it is quite challenging to change the behavior of the users, especially the clinicians. So my kind of recommendation is that do not try to change the established clinical workflow. It's oftentimes much better to work in the existing established clinical workflow. I'm not discouraging making new innovations that might provide a new workflow. That's a totally worthwhile things to do that. But as someone to run your own business, time and effort and money is limited assets and resources. So you want to you do want to pick the right target where you want to put your most resources into. Okay. And I understand that this might seem daunting, but the good thing is that pretty much all the major steps are listed here. And I dare to say that everyone, all of you, each and every one of you can do this. And I, again, make a kind of bold statement that if you want to release a real product and want to run a real business, you actually have to follow this. There's no alternative. Medtronic as a company, we are serious about this topic. And we even published a white paper named Medtronic AI Compass, as you can see. It is our official guiding principles on this topic, and it is publicly available. And I highly recommend you give a look at this. So far, we learned about the principle to build responsible AI solutions for patient care. Now, switching gear, I would like to introduce on one example innovation from Medtronic created with those in mind, focusing on clinical problem, transparency, and usability. So let's take a look at colorectal cancers, a leading cause of death in many countries. At the same time, it is preventable in about 90% of the time if caught early. But unfortunately, it is hard to detect with high miss rate. As we can see, it's a big clinical problem, and that's precisely why we created this AI solution named GI Genius. It's the first computer-aided detection system to use AI to identify pre-cancer polyps, also known as adenomas, so that the physicians can find those pre-cancer polyps or adenomas better, okay, before they become cancers. GI Genius scans every incoming single visual frame during the entire procedure in real time, and then alerts physicians to adenomas, including the small flat ones that can be really be easily go undetected by the human eyes, especially after a long day of doing like thousands of colonoscopies. The system comes with an NVIDIA-powered compute box that runs the AI software. It seamlessly integrates into existing clinical workflow to reduce the friction, okay? And then a real-time endoscopy video in. The AI enhanced the video out with green bounding boxes on the predicted adenomas out. The system is simply plug and play. It's been trained with millions of images that cover the entire spectrum of the adenomas in the real world, covering both all different kinds of size, shape, and also the color, derived from 20 different clinical centers worldwide to achieve adenoma level sensitivity higher than 99% with less than 1% of false positive rate, where the false positive rate is measured in such a way that we actually looked at the polyps that are resected by the physicians when the physician was using GI Genius. Only less than 1%, about 0.09% of the polyps turned out to be false positive, okay? We describe our entire approach transparently in this article. So if you're interested, please take a look at that. Perhaps more importantly, it is supported by substantial clinical evidence with more than 34 clinical papers in the leading journals. In particular, it's supported by 3 randomized controlled trials with more than 1,500 patients total. In particular, GI Genius has been shown to increase adenoma detection rate, or ADR, by up to 14.4% in terms of absolute increase. This is a big deal because each 1% increase translates to 3% decrease in cancer rate. So it is anticipated that the system would decrease the interval cancer rate by about 40%. And these evidence provide transparency and trust among the regulators, clinicians, and also the patients. On top of that, the system detects the targets the polyps faster than the physicians in 82% of the time. As you can kind of imagine, if the system detects the polyps slower than yourself, it will not going to add too much value. So we were quite excited and happy to see when we first saw that number, which meaning that that ensures good clinical usability. So with those advantages, it's been impacting patient care worldwide, treating more than 3 million patients per year. And here's the last thing. The hardware supports a platform called AI Access Platform. Basically, it's an app store. It's an app store that allows third-party developers and researchers like yourself to build and deploy your AI applications through the GI Genius hardware box. The hardware is powered by NVIDIA technology, specifically NVIDIA IGX. It has lots of compute capabilities and is generic and versatile. Considering that there are more than 2,000 GI Genius deployments worldwide, the potential to reach customers and make impact is huge. To get started, you can join today the Innovation Center, the web portal for the developers. And I actually tested out the web portal this morning, and unfortunately the website is down. But please give us a couple more days and you will be able to join and connect to the website. But anyhow, once your app goes through a vetting process, including a regulatory clearance with Prof validation, your medical app will become available for download by physicians and use in target jurisdiction. And with this GI Genius AI Access Platform, we want to create the future of software-defined medical device with researchers like yourself. Well, I mean, as you can see, I only give you one particular example from Medtronic, but at Medtronic, we are doing lots and lots of innovations and exciting researches in-house. So for example, foundation model for diseases and also digital twins, et cetera. So if you're interested in it, please come join Medtronic and you will get to see all those exciting developments. Okay, this is my last slide. I have 3 takeaway messages for you guys. The first one, the importance of always keeping the clinical problem at the center of AI development. Technology should serve a purpose, not the way around. Second, the value of building transparency and trust, not only with the regulatory agencies, but also all those important key stakeholders, including patients and also clinicians. Finally, the recognition that AI is most powerful when it complements human intelligence in clinical applications, in the clinical workflow. So try to make your system explainable, intuitive to use, and easy to use. Building a responsible AI solutions require a multidisciplinary, patient-first approach to deliver safety and effectiveness. This topic is especially relevant now because we are now at a critical juncture where the adoption of AI in medicine is accelerating. This is just the beginning, and I highly encourage you to join this exciting journey of building responsible AI solutions for patient care. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hong, for a very insightful talk, providing us the big picture and the pathways necessary to building a responsible AI for patient care. Now, the floor is open for questions. Can move to the microphone.
I got a question here.
Okay, you.
Thank you very much. This is Jay from SegMed. We are an imaging data provider in the US. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think it gave a lot of real valuable insight for researchers who want to develop a real product that can be used in clinical setting. I think one question I have is that we know that we need to submit a lot of records and the documents to FDA when we try to submit the application. And as an AI researcher, at some time, I'm thinking, when do we need to start to think about, hey, should I record what I'm doing today? If this code change, I need to document it somehow. I guess from your experience, at which stage we should start think about this process as a researcher, as a scientist?
Oh, that's a very good question, and I also ask my question all the time with my team members. The kind of my rule of thumb is that during the initial prototyping phase, you do not need to worry too much about that. It's the time where you can dream big, and you can basically go crazy trying all different kinds of things. And even during the main research and development phase, there is some freedom. I mean, at the end of the day, they are not interested in like tracking down every single nitty-gritty details, all the changes that you made. They're not interested in that. And in some sense, like only the major changes, like I make, for example, like changing the input types from one type to another type, or maybe like predicting different kinds of clinical parameters, like you used to predict a clinical parameter A, but now you are predicting B. You don't even need to worry too much about changing the model architectures. FDA, in my opinion, they are not interested in that level of detail. But really clinically meaningful, clinically relevant changes, that's the time that you need to document thoroughly. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yep.
Right side, rightmost side.
Thank you very much for your talk. You were talking about how, like, actually when developing a model, you spend a lot of time looking at the data and sort of much more than actually worrying about the algorithm. And as you just said, like even the architecture, it's not often all that important. And then later in your talk, you were also talking about how, well, if you just do research, you don't have to worry about these things. But if you want to actually do something that's useful and ends up being used, then you need to worry about all these things. And that made me wonder about kind of how do you see like the gap between what we're doing here that is very algorithm focused and the things that actually make a difference in clinical practice, and what can researchers do to actually make their work more relevant and meaningful to drive improvements that actually end up helping patients rather than just sort of squeezing out more performance on existing benchmarks on the algorithm side.
So is it fair to kind of paraphrase your question as, so apparently as researchers in academia, especially in academia, there is certain things that you guys typically do, certain things that you guys are mostly interested in, which is technological development. But then there is different things, all the downstream activities that I mentioned today. Obviously there is a gap between the two. You're basically asking how to minimize the gap between the two. Is that a fair description of your question?
Yeah, and like sort of how can we actually address the open challenges rather than sort of making further improvements on the parts that are already solved for like practical purposes?
Yeah. I don't have a good answer for that, but my kind of my kind of take on that is that I think that in the academia, it is actually okay to go crazy and in some sense dabble into the technology, and of course it's good to talk to the clinicians and good to talk to the potential users. But I think that you don't actually have to follow all the things that I mentioned unless you want to transform your innovations into an actual product and business. The reason that I'm mentioning this is that even though I mentioned I laid out all the things in this talk, I myself in Caption Health, I did not follow at the very beginning. I got to learn once I went through all those processes and steps. In some sense, we started as a technology company at the very beginning. Of course, we recognized the clinical problems, but in some sense, we were doing in some kind of backwards way, meaning that we first focused really on the technology side, knowing somehow that this will be clinically useful. I mean, we did not completely ignore, but we knew that it's clinically useful, but we did not, map out every single possible clinical benefits at the very beginning. But then we somehow repeated this process again and again, and gradually got familiarized with this topic. So my kind of recommendation is that it is good to know that there are such steps, there are such, all those items that I laid out today. And you can just learn one by doing. You don't have to jump start and try, agonizing too much that, oh, I must follow everything at the very beginning. I mean, if you can do that, that's fine too, but you don't have to worry too much about that, especially as an a researcher in academia.
Great.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we have very strict time limit for the next oral session, so I think we can take only one question. Sorry about that, but in the middle.
Hello, Bobby from Denmark. I'm actually a gastroenterologist and a clinician. And just to follow up on your question over there, we are not that dangerous. You can always come and talk to us. We will help you with finding your clinical, meaningful question and goal to achieve. I have a question for you, which is me, myself, and my team, we actually have developed an endoscopic system. We are already CE marking it. But in our process, we have found that it is extremely difficult for a small team to go through the whole validation process, the regulatories, and so on. So my question is, I have no intention to become a millionaire. I have no intention to earn a lot of money, but I have intention to develop systems that can go out and help my patients. So when does companies like Medtronic become interested in these solutions? When can I go find you and say, I actually have a solution that might be interested for Medtronic? Do you need to see the CE marking of the FDA approval before you even want to talk to us, or when can we approach you? And how do we do it?
Perhaps, maybe you and I can talk about that topic in more detail, but basically it sounds like, you're at the quite mature level of the research phase. And maybe it's better to have a conversation one-on-one after this session.
No, but my question is more broadly. So when somebody here has a fantastic idea, did the prototyping, maybe did even some good testing, showing good results, you are at the point where you are thinking about, okay, this can actually become a product. A lot of medical companies, Medtronics, they often say, oh, come talk to us. We would love to help you. But then when we reach out, you always want a bit more detail or a bit more, want us to be further. So my question is, at what point do we actually approach these medical companies? When are you actually taking these solutions into consideration?
So just to make just for the purpose of the conversation, if you're talking about, for example, a research group developing for example, AI algorithm that can potentially be useful for patients as well as could be interesting for companies like Medtronic, it really depends. So for example, if the algorithm is targeting a huge population, a huge patient group, and if you already got some regulatory clearance, then it becomes really interesting, and we will have high appetite for that. Obviously, if the problem is tiny, and also it's at the very initial phase of the R&D, then there is a lot of risk. So the thing that I'm trying to say is that it's not put a particular question in a it's not easy to cut and dice every single in the same way. It really depends on the context. But at least I would like to give you two different kind of criteria, kind of soft criteria. How big is the problem, and did you get a regulatory clearance or not? Or kind of my two guiding criteria. Hope that answers, at least helps your question.
Thank you. I can ask Dr. Hong, could you make yourself available just outside the door after the session so that you can continue the discussions with the participants?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll be happy to go outside and take any other questions if there are
Yeah,
any.
yeah.
Thank you so much for participating.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think very great session. Thank you. And we have the special.